Good afternoon. Could you hear me okay? Great, thank you. Welcome to our session of local action, global impact, leveraging digital urban solutions for sustainable cities. My name is Xiaohong Yang, Director General of Public Sector Region 2 of AIIB. I'm particularly pleased to moderate this session in person alongside with AIIB's 10 years anniversary with such distinguished panelists and participants. We appreciated very much you making the trip to Beijing and have the opportunity to discuss this very important subject. Out of 4 panels today, 2 just arrived this morning. So thank you very much for making the extraordinary efforts. First, I will provide a brief overview before I hand over to World Bank Vice President, Middle East and North Africa, Usman, to give the opening remarks. Today, more than half of the world's population live in cities, and this will grow to 70% by 2050. Cities produce 70% of the world's GHG emissions, but they get only less than 10% of the climate finance to fight climate change. The gap is huge. Cities need $5 trillion annually to build and upgrade infrastructure, and this need is growing as the climate risks intensify. Cities are at the epicenter of climate risks. They're dealing with hotter temperatures like we experienced this week, more floods, air pollution, and water stresses. At the same time, cities are growing quickly and struggling with old infrastructure, housing shortages, and inequality. Despite all of this, they are working so hard to lower the emissions and provide good services to their people. This raises a fundamental question for all of us. How can we better support the cities to become greener, more resilient and inclusive, at scale and at speed? Good news is organizations like AIIB are stepping up together with World Bank, CAF, ADB, etc., to really support the cities. Let me highlight 2 samples very quickly. In Beijing, AIIB supported air quality improvement and coal replacement project. Our great team leader is also here as participant. The very first AIIB investment in China, AIIB helped replace the coal with cleaner energy sources. The project helped cleaner sky in Beijing and reduced emissions and made homes cleaner and safer and also more affordable fuels and create a lot of green jobs. In Guangzhou, AIIB will support a smart city infrastructure project that integrates digital platforms to manage urban services more efficiently and inclusively. We are honored to have us today a panel of very distinguished speakers who will bring rich perspectives from MDBs across Asia Pacific, MENA region, and Latin America, and practitioners in Turkey. So joining us today are Vice President Osman. He has provided a strong leadership and critical support to MENA region in the face of complex, multi-faced challenges. He is looking after a portfolio of nearly 20 billion, and he has been country director for many, many countries. And he's now managing many country directors in MENA region. Thank you, VP, for coming. Please, I now want to hand over to our VP to give the keynote speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers, esteemed colleagues, innovators, friends, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm delighted to be back in the beautiful city of Beijing, headquarters of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And I want, before anything, to congratulate AIB for a very successful annual meeting. I want to start in a personal note. I started my career walking in the narrow alleys of fast-growing cities. And one of them was the city of Shenzhen, where I started my earlier career, including building wastewater treatment plants. And at the time, I come to realize that poor drainage, unsafe water, and missing infrastructure weren't only an issue of policies. They were daily realities of millions of people. In those days, I learned that the heart of any city is not its skyline. It is the people in the city. And the test of any urban city is whether it can serve them, especially the most vulnerable. That perspective has shaped my journey as an engineer, as someone who worked in water and sanitation, and now as a vice president for the Middle East and North Africa region at the World Bank, and very soon extended to Pakistan and Afghanistan. That's why I'm honored to be here with you today for a conversation that is both urgent and exciting. How can we leverage digital urban solutions to build sustainable, inclusive, and resilient cities for our citizens, which deserve so much more? Ladies and gentlemen, digital tools, one grounded in local needs and backed by the right governance and financing, can reshape the urban experience, and they already are. Today's theme, leveraging digital urban solutions for sustainable cities, could not be more timely. It resonates deeply with the challenge and hopes of the Middle East and North Africa, MENA, the region I proudly serve. In MENA, sustainable cities are no longer an ideal. They are an urgent necessity. From Gaza to Aleppo to Hodeida, we see devastated infrastructure, strained critical services, and displacement. In Beirut, unreliable electricity affects daily lives. In Alexandria in Egypt, experiences frequent floods. Many cities struggle to deliver essential services, generate employment, and address governance gaps. And despite incredible innovations and smart solutions in places like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, intra-regional learning and technology transfer remain limited. Still, I remain hopeful, very hopeful even. With a young, tech-savvy population and committed governments, MENA is moving towards smart urban development with the support of partners like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the World Bank. I thank AIB for the partnership. Let me highlight a few promising examples of innovation from my region. In United Arab Emirates, Dubai City Smart Initiative and Abu Dhabi Masdar City are living labs for smart citizen services and smart infrastructure and show the potential of integrated waste-to-energy systems and smart mobility solutions. In Jordan, we support the Global Smart City Partnership Program, and the World Bank and the Greater Amman Municipality has launched a roadmap for city transformation that includes smart governance, transparent municipal services, and improved waste management. In Egypt, Sheikh Zayed City has used remote sensing to map overground assets of the city, enabling smart asset management and even smart property registration. The World Bank's MENA Tech program is another milestone. It is supporting 6 countries: Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Lebanon, Tunisia, and Iraq, to expand digital infrastructure, improve sector governance, de-risk digital investment, and mobilize private capital. Yet, we must aim higher. MENA still lacks its own Beijing, and we see Beijing as a model. So we still lack our own Beijing. We still lack a Silicon Valley where cities technology is not only tested and created, but where young people and innovators can generate new ideas and new solutions for regional and global problems. So the People's Republic of China offers valuable inspirations, and these technologies can and should be adapted for MENA. I imagine, I dream of MENA's cities where artificial intelligence-powered chatbots offer 24 hours over 7 citizen services. Predict analytics improve disaster preparedness in places like Alexandria and Kirkuk in Iraq. Digital twins modeling tools stimulate the effects of infrastructure changes and climate scenario before implementation. Drones mapping and machine learning support post-conflict reconstruction and urban redesign. Technologies, when used right, is a powerful tool to build more resilient and inclusive cities. But it is not a silver bullet, let's face it. We must ensure that we capitalize on the economic opportunities and potential for job creation that artificial intelligence and digital transformation can offer, and that we are ready for the reshaping of the labor market that is inevitable. In reality, the future of jobs cannot be dissociated with the future of cities across the world, including in MENA. New jobs will emerge in areas like artificial intelligence ethics, green constructions, renewable energy system, smart infrastructure management, and data analytics. A reskilling revolution is needed, one that prepares MENA's citizens for new roles, empowers youth to lead, and is based on deliberate, inclusive planning. We also need a whole-of-government approach. Cities require enabling policies, human capital investment, and access to finance. Today, only 4% of the 500 largest cities in developing countries are credit-worthy, in international market. Yet, they need $5 trillion annually for financing urban infrastructure alone. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the challenge which we need to face when it comes to financing infrastructure in cities around the world. This is one of the areas where I see multilateral development banks to play a bigger role, supporting cities with enabling policies and legal frameworks, sharing financial and technical expertise, fostering knowledge exchange, and crowding in finance from private actors and development partners. A good example is the Source Initiative, a joint platform of 8 MDBs, including AIB and the World Bank, which is supporting sustainable infrastructure and streamlining project development and data sharing. The path to sustainable, inclusive, and I insist on inclusive, no one should be left behind. So the path of sustainable, inclusive, and digitally enabled cities is not easy, but it is also within reach. It requires all of us today to come together around a shared vision, bold leadership, and a commitment to investing in the people, institutions, and technologies that are essential part of sustainable cities. National governments, local authorities, private actors, international partners like MDBs, and citizens all have a role to play. The future of cities will not be built in isolation, let's face it. It will be shaped through collaboration, collaboration between national and local governments, collaboration between global and regional partners, the public and the private sector, and most importantly, citizens themselves. Digital innovations give us powerful tools, but it is our shared vision, our collective leadership that will determine how we use them to build opportunities, to foster inclusions, and to enhance resilience going forward. As someone who has seen firsthand what is possible when communities come together around a common purpose, I remain hopeful. I remain committed. The World Bank stands ready to work alongside all of you to turn today's ideas into tomorrow's realities, realities that shape a better future for all and modern and livable cities for all. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward for the discussion ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. And then we also make it very interactive. We will show you a video. It's like a film. Now let's play the video. And then after that, I will turn over to our director, Yaya, on how this can happen. Yeah, how you made it happen. Thank you.
Istanbul, with its population, economic power, and strategic location, is not only Turkey's, but one of the world's most important metropolitan cities. Yet, it is also a city under high seismic risk. To reduce disaster risks in Istanbul, the Istanbul Seismic Risk Mitigation and Emergency Preparedness Project, ISMEP, was launched in 2006 under the Istanbul governorship and implemented by the Istanbul Project Coordination Unit, IPCU. ISMEP is not only reconstructing structures, it is strengthening public awareness, emergency response capacity. So far, under ISMEP, structured retrofitting and reconstruction of 1,691 public buildings of 7,244,624 square meter construction area have been completed. 3.3 million people have received disaster awareness training. 1,190 schools and campuses constructed are safe against earthquake. 4 major city hospitals of 924,353 square meters construction area, based on seismic isolators, have been built modern, resilient, and ready to serve Istanbul. 1 major city hospital has been retrofitted with seismic isolators. And every project is supported by sustainable engineering and technologies designed to ensure uninterrupted service in times of disaster. In this transformation, international support plays a critical role. Since 2020, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, has provided a total of 718 million euros of financing through 3 separate loan agreements covering 21% of 3.4 billion euros, which is ISMEP's total budget. This comprehensive and long-term support reflects AIIB's strong collaboration with Turkey and its commitment to strategic investments aimed at reducing disaster risk. With the support of AIIB, ISMEP has achieved remarkable milestones. Completed retrofitting of 133 schools with work ongoing in 10 more. Reconstructed 24 schools and construction continues at 21 others. Tripled the total indoor space of newly built schools. Increased the number of classrooms by 64%, reaching 999 in total, the equivalent of building 16 entirely new schools for Istanbul. Reconstructed the 13,000 square meter Çekmeköy district governorate building. And continues construction of a new social services building. These outcomes clearly reflect the core of AIIB's value for money principle through efficient design and optimized space planning. We have been able to achieve not just safer buildings, but also expanded educational capacity without requiring additional long acquisition or large-scale investments.
Veli'de oluşan güven bizim için çok önemli. Devletine olan güven, okuluna olan güven, çocuğunun emniyet altında olduğunu bilmesi bizim için en büyük kazanç. Okul o kadar güzel yapılmış ki artık çocukların bile davranışlarına bunlar yansıyor. Geniş koridorlu okullar, işte sınıflarında tüm boydan boya bir ortam, okul koridorları, merdiven aralıklarının geniş olması bile çocuklarımızın daha mutlu okula gelmesini sağlıyor.
Yakın bir zamanda deprem yaşadık İstanbul'da hep birlikte ve biz deprem yaşandığında okuldaydık. Öncelikle boşaltmamız çok kısa sürdü. Çünkü hem koridorlar genişti hem bir sürü yangın merdivenimiz vardı, birçok çıkışı var okulumuzun. Aynı zamanda herkesin içinde bir güven vardı. Hani dışarı çıkarken okul zaten yeni yapıldı, deprem yönetmeliğine uygun yapıldı.
Okulun bir velisi, bir anne olarak depreme karşı dayanıklı yapıldığı için çok mutluyum. Şu anda bütün çocukların bu okulda zevkle, hevesle gidip gelmelerinden memnunuz.
Thanks to AIIB's contributions, ISMEP is not only mitigating earthquake risk, but also contributing to climate change adaptation, energy efficiency, and sustainable urban development. With the technical expertise of IPCU and the strong financial support of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, not only buildings, but the lives of thousands of students, teachers, healthcare employees, and Istanbul residents are becoming safer. Each day, Istanbul moves towards a more resilient and hopeful future. And IPCU, with its human and nature-centered innovation and inclusive approach, continues to build that future stronger than ever.
Thank you very much. Let me ask Yaya, Director of ISMEP. He led ISMEP to enhance Istanbul's preparedness for major earthquake and risk reduction. So you can see the total budget mobilized is already 3.4 billion euros, supported by 8 international IFIs. So how he made it? Let's go through it. Thank you.
Thank you, President. And, thank you, It's a pleasure to be here. I am Yalçın Kaya. I am the director of the Istanbul Project Coordination Unit. I would like to thank you for invitation to these valuable meetings. And I will give a very brief presentation in parallel of our movies. And in our countries, the floods, earthquakes, and landslides and wildfires is the most seen in devastating earthquakes, devastating disasters. And the most devastating one is the earthquake, because 70% of the people are living in the earthquake-prone area, and 97% of the people casualties because of the coming from the earthquake. This is the most devastating one is the 1999 earthquake, and then we have a very huge, very bad experience about we have lost 17 people, and we couldn't communicate, we couldn't provide the communication, we couldn't organize the search and rescue equipment. And this earthquake has shifted our approach, and from the recovery activities to the risk mitigation. With the World Bank support in our government, it has launched 2006 Istanbul Seismic Risk Mitigation and Emergency Preparedness Project. And this is not only for Turkey, it is the biggest risk mitigation project of our region. And in the very beginning of the project, we have started 310 million, and today, with the joining of the 8 different IFIs, the Islamic Development, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank especially, we reached the 3.4 billion US dollar. And ISMEP is the 3 main components. One is the enhancement of the emergency response capacity. The second one is the risk mitigation of the public infrastructure, schools, hospitals, dormitories. And the last one is the rising of the public awareness activities. And then under the A component is the focus on the improve the communication system. We implemented, we procured many different type of the satellite analog system, and we provided the alternative communication system. Also, we improved the capacity of the search and rescue teams. And also, we constructed 2 command control centers, and also we increased the capacity of the search and rescue teams, and in parallel in the improvement of our world. And the second and most important one of our project is the focus on the risk mitigation of the public infrastructures. And the first one is the risk mitigation of the public buildings by retrofitting and reconstruction of the schools. And during the construction, during the risk mitigation activities, we have an opportunity to, we have a chance to make these new buildings more efficient, more energy efficient, and we may have a chance to make special designs. And also, especially in hospital, is the service continuity. It's very important, and we use the different type of the construction methods, such as base isolators. And the last and important part of our success of the project, stakeholder engagement. And we believe that we have to listen to our customers, our clients, our children, parent association, our teachers. And up to date, we reached 1,221 schools. It's equal to 1.8 million students, and 100,000 teachers are going to more safe schools. As watch the movies, and people are happy, people are going to children schools more reliable, more safe. And as said before, we have some opportunity, and we improved the education quality, we added some social areas, we increased the capacity of the buildings, we improved the energy efficient, we designed energy efficient schools. And also we have a chance to add some social area in our schools, in sports hall, conference hall, and we adopted some national-based solutions, energy environmental solutions. And this is the additional benefit, is the modernization of the education. And not only for the focus on the disaster risk mitigation, but also during the reconstruction activities, we add some energy efficient methods. And by using this more efficient cooling and heating system, heat insulation, and by natural ventilation, nature-based solution, we reduced the energy consumption, water, natural gas, and others, nearly 30%. And also we reduced the carbon footprint 34%. And also, as explained before, the hospital is the very important part of our disaster response activities, because hospital must continue on services. That's why we adapted seismic-based isolator system, and in our approach in hospital is the uninterrupted services, and also not only LEED Gold, green building system. That's why we awarded the LEED certificates. And the other important part of in the digital system, in our 2 pilot municipalities, we digitalized for the construction permit and complaint mechanism. And by using this system, we honor to provide the people apply to municipality to get the construction permits, or whenever any problems happen, they can easily reach the municipality by using the different type of the communication system. And as a result of this system, we reduced the construction period permit time from the 80 days to 20 days. And it's other important part of the cultural heritage. We made an inventarization study for the in Istanbul cultural heritage. We completed multi-hazard assessment studies, 174 buildings, and also we prepared 3 main monuments, retrofitting and renovation activities. And also the most important part of our digital system, as explained before, disaster risk mitigation. It is the most important part of our job, but additionally, this is the sustainable guides. It's also very complex, our digital units, and published in our documents in 2023. And we determined our sustainable targets. And also in documents and covering all of our implementation by using the energy efficient, how to design energy efficient building. And also our implementation covering 11 of the ECMP Sustainable Development Goals. And also this is the most important part of the other most important part is the public awareness activities. Why important? Because we have to change the people behavior. We have to teach the people how to behave before, during, and after earthquake. Otherwise, only we are making the construction activities, we are demolishing and reconstruction of the buildings. That's why we have to teach the people. And they can do before the earthquake, they can start the risk mitigation activities. In case of an earthquake, they have a lot of things to do. And we published many documents for children, for school, for hospital, for disabled pupils. And we reached the peoples up to date, 3.3 million people we reached by distributing material, by giving training. And also every week, we are using the digital platform. Every week, we are making the online training activities. And also we have an economic impact assessment. And why, everybody asks why you are spending a lot of money for this type of risk mitigation activities. As a result of by calculating our benefits and content saved, saving life, avoiding other issues. And when we find that as a result of this study, if you spend 1 unit money for the disaster risk activities, you will save the average 7 or 8 units. And also, we would like to join the many conferences because we believe that we have to share our knowledge. And also, I would like to close my speech. Our motto, we are strengthening our future, and thank you listening for me.
Thank you. Let's give a big hand. A great symbol to transform from risk recovery to risk mitigation, to energy efficiency, and to many benefits. So let me now turn to Mr. Angel. He's the Chief Manager of Urban Development and Creative Economies at CAF. So in his role, he leads a portfolio exceeding 8 billion in urban operations across 20 member countries in Latin America, focused on sectors such as mobility, water, sanitation, citizen security, and also creative economies. Could you share some good samples in your region? Thank you.
Thank you for having me and for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. And I will probably start with the question that we internally ask ourselves for the panel. What works and what enables success? Because I think here's the key of the examples. What works definitely is to leverage the digital technologies. These powerful tools enable us right now to, by gathering data, to predict, to provide better services, to even do better planning. But that's what works. But what it would enable us to be successful is to have and understand that the implementation of that has to be human-centered. I mean, we're not talking about megabytes or gigabytes discussion. We're talking about people. We're talking about people's problem and public policy situations and challenges that need to be addressed with digital transformation tools. So when we looked at the different examples, we're seeing a trend right now, at least in Latin America and local municipalities in terms of digital transformation. A few years back, you would see that programs or development programs were only using different components, earmarked components. But now you're seeing a complete different story where like majors or governors are addressing their challenges with cross-cutting digital transformation solutions. They understood the technologies there to help to solve these public policies. And within that context, I think the first example I'd like to share with you is Caxias do Sul. It's a loan that we did in Brazil for $40 million, was directly with the municipality. And the focus it had was to develop different digital tools that could allow and help the municipality to understand or to gather data through satellite imagery to better manage climate risk and challenges that are more important to predict solutions in terms of risk disaster management. For instance, water flows, heat, air pollution were elements that could be easily addressed by having that data. But of course, and here's the key part of this example, that doesn't happen only by having the technology. It's about having the strategic focus of the data, the local leadership, and understanding that with that data, not only you could predict, but you could also plan differently. And I think that's the beauty of this project, because at the same time, while they were implementing this program, they realized they could make better decisions in terms of land policies, land use policies, but also how to address and how to promote biodiversity programs that could make them more sustainable throughout time. So that's one example. Another example at a different scale, but still at the local level, are utilities. I mean, utilities need to provide better services. And again, it's at the center, people are at the center of the decision. We're working right now with one utility company in Uruguay, where they have decided to launch a complete digital overhaul transformation across their company, and is to A, measure better their use of water, but B, to provide better services to the citizen. And again, the cornerstone of this, or this is based on the use of the technology, but I want to be emphatic on this, emphasize again, it's how you use the technology for the people. It's not only the technology. And the third example I'd like to share is what we're doing in Bogota. It's more from the upstream perspective or more the policy dialogue, because policy adoption is also important in this discussion, is how we work with the city of Bogota to change the regulatory framework so there could be more options to digital companies, to GovTech solutions to provide greener jobs. By working alongside with the government, with the city of Bogota, and changing the regulatory framework, what we're seeing now is that there are more employment opportunities or investment opportunities for this type of companies, but more importantly, the digital transformation is evolving at a faster pace because it changed completely the type of the regulatory framework. And at the end, just as 3 takeaways, what works and what enables the success: local leadership for sure, a strategic focus, and understanding that the data is more than the data. It should be used to help solve people's problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Let me now turn to Warren. He is now, fortunately, our senior advisor to AIB now. Used to be senior advisor in the Sustainable Development Network and director of environmental department in the World Bank until 2013. Then he served as climate envoy for ADB for many years. Over to you.
Thank you, Xiaohong. And it's great to be here. I really appreciate being invited to be on this panel because it gives an old man a chance to think back. And similar to you, VP, I started my career in the ADB working on urban environmental projects. And back in the 90s, every city that I worked in was severely under-infrastructured, severely underfinanced. They were the large pockets of the urban poor in those countries, were in the mega cities. And most of those poor people lived in low-lying areas in coastal cities. And so when floods hit in those days, the poor people were the worst hit. It was tough, and it was tough to get very much progress. There was very little private sector money going into the cities at the time, and the MDBs were doing as well as we could with limited demand from government. Governments were not paying that much attention to fixing the cities. Fast forward and overlay climate change with that scenario, then there's been a lot of progress in cities in mobilizing private capital, and I'm going to talk about one example in a second, where private sector engagement makes sense. The capacity of urban governments has dramatically improved, across Asia anyway. But the impacts of climate change are really holding back a lot of that. So those low-lying areas that used to be flooded for a week or 2 weeks are now flooded for a month or 2 months. And cities like Jakarta and Bangkok and others are in very deep trouble. The new kid on the block are the heat waves that we're feeling. And the impacts at the city level of heat waves are not known yet. We know they're terrible, but we don't really have much in terms of a real understanding. So I'm going to try and give a couple of examples first of a success story that requires not a finger lifted by an MDB. And that's the e-bus program in India. A former colleague of mine from the World Bank was brought back into the government of India, and using the e-bus, this very successful e-bus program in India as an example, she was able to bring cities together and establish a very uniform system of bidding to attract the large e-bus manufacturers in India to compete to provide e-buses across the country in the largest cities. And I'm going to just throw out a few numbers here. The first aggregated demand was for 5,450 buses. The second one, 6,465 buses, and the third for another 5,000, with tender sizes of around $1 billion each. The largest program other than China. The prices were 27% less than diesel, without a subsidy, and improving public transport, greener, with prices that were that didn't require a subsidy. They've developed a digital platform to manage this. The bidders manage the system. It's not government, and they're able to manage these systems highly efficient and because it's electric, reduce air pollution in these cities dramatically. As of now, this started only a few years ago, three or 4 years ago. There are now 27,000 e-buses contracted and 11,000 on the roads. So this is a very short time frame to rapidly transform urban transport, and a perfect opportunity for private sector to step in when government has the right policies and regulations and capacity to help make it happen. No MDB role at all. And I did a lot of my early urban work in India, so I would be a little jealous now if I were still doing that. Second example is one that's not a success story, and where I think the MDBs have not picked up the slack and need to. And this is on building energy efficiency. So right now, about half the buildings that we're going to have in 2050 already exist. For us to meet the net zero targets, we need to retrofit at least 20% of the existing building stock, particularly with regards to energy efficiency, but also the kind of work that you were doing in terms of earthquake prevention and so on. About 20% of that, 50% of today's buildings need retrofitted. And to do that is extremely difficult because you're talking about a lot of different individuals. And if you're talking about a building like where AIB is, how many tenants are there? Or a condo, you've got, every unit is a different owner. It's not easy, but this has to happen. And now with heat waves hitting cities the way we are, we need to introduce low-cost cooling together with energy efficiency. It's not happening. What's the role of the MDBs? If the MDBs can help governments, and at the end of the day, it's the government's responsibility, but if MDBs can, through policy-based lending, such as the CPBFs that AIB has, help governments to reform the policies, the regulations, and build the institutions required to actually enable large-scale transactions by private sector to go retrofit at scale across cities and maybe even across countries, then all of a sudden you're generating thousands and thousands of jobs. You're reducing GHG emissions dramatically. You're improving the health of the people, both in terms of cooling and in terms of reducing air pollution. But that nut hasn't been cracked yet. So for those of you who are here from AIB and World Bank and ADB, I give you that challenge because we haven't been able to effectively tackle it yet. I'll stop there and I'll come in with other examples later. Thanks.
Thank you, Warren. You are highlighting that Sambo, we need to do more and better. So could you also answer the question, what is holding us back? What is really holding the cities back? What must change? Why the cities are underfinanced? Thank you.
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things. 20 years ago, I would have started off with capacity at the urban and national, certainly at the urban level, but maybe also at the national level. I think that's changed a lot, and I think it's now a recognition that, and this is a gross oversimplification, but it's a recognition that it's easier to tap the private sector to get private capital to invest in a city than it is public sector money. But most of what needs to be invested in are public goods. And so when we look at things like flood control, drainage flood control, I have a hard time imagining that becoming a private sector initiative. That requires public sector money, and that requires better domestic resource mobilization. It requires a level of concessionality in some cases to be able to open space to actually come in. For example, there's a tremendous opportunity to use nature-based solutions to address a lot of those problems. But that's a new kind of work that's being done, and so there's a lot of upstream analytical work, a lot of application of digital technologies to identify where and what you do in terms of nature-based solutions to reduce the costs and generate the multiple benefits of NBS. I think the bottom line is still governance. You know, just like countries, municipalities have they have governments that have a short lifespan, a short shelf life. And so they want to do what they can in that period of time while they're in control. And most of what we're talking about are much longer term investments. Transport, we're seeing those long-term investments because there's an attraction to the private sector, and governments have made the policy reforms to enable them to come in. Same with renewable energy and other areas for private sector. But where it comes to public sector investments, that's a big challenge. And so it's governance, it's a limit, to a certain extent, capacity still, it's money. Thanks.
Thank you. And then we now want to turn to Angel, Chief Manager, to really let us know, because I recall the Bogota public transport was one of the best one in the world in the early days. So how do you see the MDBs and governments and instruments like we have now CBPAF, the climate-based policy lending, could really help the region like Latin America to move forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Listening to Warren, I had to disagree a little bit with you, but I could see where you're coming from. But I mean, if you look at the regional map of Latin America, and you looked into mid-sized cities right now, you would probably agree that technical capacity remain a big challenge. And I would probably say that framing this conversation in Latin America, what we're seeing is we have the large cities that are where you could have the low-hanging fruit and see great examples with transportation and financing mechanism, but you also see the mid-size and the lower-size cities that still struggle, and they have major technical capacity issues. And to start with my answer, I think NDBs need to be focused on still helping developing those capacities. And that's what CAF has been doing in the last couple of years, to how to remain at the front line of providing technical assistance capacity instruments that would strengthen their capacity. Having said that, if you go to the big players in Latin America, and we've had great examples, particularly in financing instruments. And we're seeing themes of thematic bond issues more and more that could be climate related. For instance, like transportation, we are doing one in Bogota right now where we are anchoring investment alongside the World Bank. And but we're also seeing in terms of more regional level, like what we did in El Salvador last year, that it was the first debt swap for river conservation, and where there was a combination of fiscal savings for the country, but also a highly climate resilience related agenda promoted. But the interesting part of this, and going back to what Warren mentioned, is that the role of the private sector. In these two transactions I'm mentioning, the private sector has a major role, because our investment banks that are actually willing to go into with development banks to provide this type of guarantee structures, or in the other sectors are institutional investors that are beginning to see that cities can actually be a source of revenue for them, and it makes sense to invest. So again, if we can enlarge these low-hanging fruits, which are the large cities in Latin America, and we can work with the mid-sized cities and strengthen their capacity, what we might be seeing in the next 10 years is a different landscape, where we can see more opportunities for the private sector, and where NDBs might only be market makers. But at the end, it's the question how you bring the private sector, how you lure them into seeing these investment opportunities and sort of developing an asset class at a local level. And I think that should be a role. But then again, you need to be careful understanding that there's still a huge difference between different levels of cities right now. Like the large ones are probably the Bogota, Sao Paulo's, Limas of this world are amazing, but when you look into a 200,000 city, then you have a challenge because they might not even have an engineer that writes the terms of reference for a water project. That happens more than often. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. That's very interesting. You mentioned all the innovations through bond insurance, through eco-investment platform to leverage the private sector, and debt swap, etc. So that's very, very interesting. We understand that in America, you have 70% of population already staying in cities. So small-sized, medium-sized cities are all very important for us. Those examples are very, very relevant to Asian Pacific. Let me just turn to, given the time limitation, I still want to give the audience some time to reflect and ask questions. I would like to ask VP Osman, and you're working in a very, very challenging region, especially the conflict and fragile FCAS countries. I remember World Bank has done a very interesting study, and they actually did survey for 10,000 cities globally. And then we'd like to know, from your perspective, from MDB, especially the World Bank, working in the MENA region, the experience would be very, very rewarding and relevant. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And I believe that to respond to your question, it goes a little bit to what Warren was saying. What is easy, don't give it, to the MDBs, but let the MDBs, take the challenge of the most difficult, and how we will be able, to make it happen working with government and citizens. And I think that is that challenge which is even more relevant today when we see that the world is facing some kind of multiple crises. So this is where the concept of polycrisis becomes fundamentally important. And when you listen to this discussion and you go back to cities, and I was quite reflective a little bit of what Dr. Kaya was saying when he took the example of Turkey with respect to, when it comes to disaster risk, and most importantly, earthquake. And you look at the geography of earthquake today around the world. It runs almost from Indonesia, to the Ring of Fire up to Japan, the whole, Andean countries in Latin America, most part of the Atlas, in North Africa, up to the range going from China to Iran to Pakistan, etc. and so. And you can see how fundamental that challenge worldwide represents. Take the challenge of energy, and currently how to make, the energy transition, a success. Take currently, the whole agenda of what I will say, the crisis related, to extreme, okay? Heat waves, floods, is a whole issue of water scarcity, etc., etc. And all those have implications on the dynamic of cities, around the world. And I will just summarize it for the sake of time to 3 aspects, which I do believe are fundamentally important. One is we should not rest over our laurels with respect to continuing to build human capital and skills. Even if it is within a wall of artificial intelligence, we need to make sure that we continue to skills and to skills generations. So it becomes from early childhood to a life learning, how those elements of building human capital for cities, in terms of engineering, in terms of sophistication, etc., and so will be there. That's one. The second element, which I believe is fundamentally important, it goes back to the point of how MDBs can work together and beyond, is the issue of partnership and coordination. And this is fundamentally important because it goes to the heart of knowledge and how to bring different experiences around the world together, how to nurture them, and how to make sure also that this issue of looking at the agendas of city is not only focusing on main cities. Let us remember that when we talk about urbanization, beyond capitals, beyond big cities, you have a set of secondary and tertiary cities which are currently the heart of how those infrastructure need to be put in. And the longer we wait, the more difficult it becomes, and the more expensive it will become also. This is where knowledge, fostering partnership, coordination, working together is going to be absolutely critical. We at the World Bank, we put in place this academy, okay, this knowledge academy, which we believe more and more could be an instrument through which we can bring different countries of learning experiences, best practices, and seeing how we can cross-fertilize going forward. And we want to do that more and more with other partners like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And the third one is private capital, private sector. That mobilization of resources, it is in the magnitude of trillions and trillions. There is no way, just absolutely no way, that MDBs can fill that gap alone. There is no way that domestic resources mobilization alone can fill it. So the private sector is going to have a fundamental role on this. Now, one aspect which the MDBs can do beyond the financing they are providing is currently to help support cities on how to improve their business environment. Business environment in terms of policies, business environment in terms of regulation, business environment also in terms of skills. Let us, and it goes back to my first point, because we still see sometimes private sector coming in and not finding the right skills. And that is a challenge. That's why policies are important. That's why regulations are important. And those three elements become absolutely critical. You put it in the context of MENA, a region which is absolutely rich in many ways when it comes to natural resources. Yet, we still have gaps in education, we still have a gap in policies, we still have gaps on the way currently state-owned enterprises alone have a share of the lion, but not performing always at the rhythm they will be in order to respond to the challenge of jobs. And ultimately, I want to end up with this one, because the job creation in cities is going to be currently one of those cornerstone solutions, which if we manage to crack it and to crack it well, then the future of our cities, as I was saying, cannot be dissociated with artificial intelligence and technologies. And that is also what is going to define the future of jobs in cities going forward. And all those are elements which we need all to work together in finding the most appropriate solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, VP. That's very, very brilliant. You talked about for us to mobilize funds from millions to trillions. It is so important to mobilize private sector mobilization. For us to do that, we have to have policy regulatory framework. We have to have human capital capacity. We have to do live learning and partnerships and coordination. With this, I really want to have 10 minutes to turn. Yeah. So let's ask a couple of questions to the brilliant panelists. You first, yeah.
Right, thank you so much. My name is Mahmoud Muhiddin. I'm the Special Envoy of the Secretary General of the UN on Financing Sustainable Development. Excellent panel. Just a quick question, and perhaps building on what Osman just mentioned now on the issues related to private sector finance. I remember when we were at the World Bank, one of the best studies we did in collaboration with the DRC of China. It was the Urban China 2030. And just the questions, perhaps to the experience of Latin America and Turkey, on how you are optimizing finance for urban development and how you are using digital means to improve the partnerships with the private sector. Many things come to mind here. There is some good studies, including the manual for financing municipalities that came out from the World Bank many years ago, gets updated. I remember that I did myself a comparison between China and Colombia on how best to mobilize finance based on better land management and dealing with property taxes.
But if you went beyond these traditional sources of finance on better land management and property taxes, do you advise other means of substance to fund all of what you do? Because the point raised by Osman just now is on the construction phase when you do public-private partnerships. But what about maintenance, improvement, and enhancing performance? Did you come up with ideas that you can share and benefit from? Thank you.
I think, Yaya, you want to take up that challenge? Because there's a lot on you. Thank you.
And scaling up to our project, and at the beginning of the project, we have only 310 million US dollar, and then it is nearly about of the 20% of the whole needs of the whole budget. And we believe that it is, and we have a good relationship with our partners in our local institutions, and also we have a good partnership with the Multinational Development Bank. Because we know each other, we know who wants to, how to implement the project. And also we believe that we have to be success. And that's why we have to establish a good teams, and we have to establish a transparent procurement mechanism, and also establish a reporting and monitoring system. And also in our job is very, very difficult and very important part of, because whenever we have a very huge workload in our teams, because we have to reach all schools, and whenever we reach any schools, and 1,500,000 children are going to more safe schools. That's why we have to make our implementation very quick and very high quality. And and at the end of the 5 years, and every other IFIs see the results and see our implementation results and see the quality of the hospital. And also we have a very detailed report. We prepared a very detailed report, how much money we needed, how many schools we needed, how many hospitals we will construct. And also in our project appraisal document is very clear. And all our partners know how to give the money or how to add, how to join this project, and they know very well what is the main target of our project. That's why we reached today and 3.4 billion euro, and I hope that the next year we will reach the 5 billion euro. And today we are working with the 8 different IFIs, 8 different IFIs, 8 different culture, but this is the main things, and then this is the same, all IFIs, the same idea. This is the have to be stakeholder engagement is important. You have to get all needs, all requests of the beneficiaries, and also you have to be transparent, and you have to be a good monitoring and evaluation system, and by implementing this successful implementation, and I hope that we reach this budget.
Thank you. It looks like IFIs go to you to get all the projects done. Who else want to ask questions? Yeah, the one in the middle. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a PhD student in taxation, and I'm really interested in the role of governments in the development of digital cities. I have 2 questions. First, given the large scale and the long-term nature of digital infrastructure investment, what kind of policies do you think the governments should adopt to mitigate the risks involved in this project? And second, what could governments do to attract private sector investment in digital infrastructure investment? Thank you.
Wonderful questions. May I ask you to answer, VP?
Thank you for the question. And two things. First is when it comes to financing infrastructure, especially when it comes to digital and when it comes to cities, I think the fundamental question which many cities around the world will face is first and foremost the policies in place. What is the enabling environment for private sector to come in? And to some point, your question is related to what Mahmoud Muhyiddin was raising, which is currently, and both of you raise an extremely relevant question today, and which is going to set what the future of cities of tomorrow would be. Because in order to get access to that financing, the current instruments are not all sufficient. That's point number one. Point number two is the regulation in place. They don't yet cover the spectrum of what the whole digital infrastructure would look like. Among some of those issues is the one, for example, of privacy, data privacy, okay? And the third aspect is because cities may not be able to cover the elements needed to secure that funding. The main question is how do you de-risk cities in order to attract those investments? And I think this is now perhaps one of those questions which we have not yet fully responded to. Because that de-risking means currently understanding between where cities are today, where cities should be tomorrow, and how that money should continue to flow in a regular basis in order to be sure that those infrastructure are being put in place. The investors have the confidence on putting the money, and there is behind a mechanism which will continue to de-risk those investments going forward. And it is not a straight answer, to tell you the truth, because there are so many things happening around the world. Yes. There are so many uncertainties which sometimes are linked to those, that the de-risking on itself have also to consider the political economy in many ways. And that is why it is a question which I believe will continue to require a lot of work to be done. It's gonna have to build on experiences on some cities. It's gonna also require more and more of identifying champions. Those who will be able, to take this and new instruments, whether they are related, to bonds, okay, and the bonds have a whole spectrum which can be defined, but perhaps also new instrument. People talk more and more about, for example, bitcoins. Okay, people talk more and more about, such innovation which still have to come. But the bottom line is policies are going to be fundamental. Regulatory environment is going to be extremely important, but on the top of it, how to de-risk those investments. And again, I'll just go to the number. If you take 500 largest cities in the world, 500, 4% of them, 4%, are creditworthy. Now imagine the thousands and thousands of secondary cities, the thousands and thousands, hundreds of tertiary cities. What are they going to become? And where's that challenge? That is, I would believe, a challenge of the world of today and tomorrow.
Wonderful. So the reality is only 4% of large cities, 500 cities, are getting creditworthiness. So that is a really tough reality. Any other final questions from the floor? Thank you, Mahe.
Thank you. Thank you to the very insightful panel here. So I have a small question. So I'm working for AIB in this public sector clients department. A small question is, we often observe that there are fragmented mandates between city level and provincial level governments and at the federal level. Especially we've seen this in the MENA region quite a lot. So could you share with us some insights based on your experiences of how IFIs can help navigate help cities to overcome these institutional overlaps so that governance doesn't become a challenge and decision-making can actually happen in a timely way? Thank you.
Thank you. Mahai is suffering working with surgery. Yes. Over to you, Warren.
Great question. I'm going to give a very quick answer. I think in the last few years, the recognition that climate risks are so critical for what happens at the urban level and across into the provincial level, that the kind of upstream analytical work that's being done now really brings forth the reality that you can't focus on a single sector and you can't focus on, within an urban boundary. If you're looking at water supply, you know, in some countries you're looking from the glacier of another country down to your city for water supply. So I think the climate risk analysis work that's going on today, largely led by the MDB community, has really started to break that, that silo, the silos that we've faced for a long time. The problem is, and the question is, have the MDBs broken those silos to be able to deliver a holistic program of support to the urban level? And that's a question I can ask because I'm not in an MDB anymore.
Thank you. I remember the World Bank book is called Thriving, for after 10,000 cities survey. So thank you very much. Let's give a big hand to all the panelists and participation. Yes, thank you.